Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana
11, verse 55. So you can repeat after me. Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat bhakta sangha varjita.
Mat bhakta sangha varjita.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Yasamameti pandava.
Yasamameti pandava.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat bhakta sangha varjita.
Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Yasamameti pandava.
Yasamameti pandava.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat bhakta sangha varjita.
Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Yasamameti pandava.
Yasamameti pandava.
Someone can recite.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat karma krin mat paramo.
Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha.
Mat bhakta sangha varjita.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu.
Yasamam iti pandava.
Yasamameti pandava.
Any other devotees who would like to recite?
Mat karma krin mat paramo. Mat bhakta sangha varjita. Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu. Yasamameti pandava.
Any Matatis?
Mat karma krit mat paramo. Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu. Yasamameti pandava.
Any other Matatis?
Mat karma krit mat paramo. Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. Nirvaira sarva bhuteshu. Yasamameti pandava.
Word by word translation. Mat karma krit.
Mat karma krit.
Engage in doing my work.
Engage in doing my work.
Mat parama.
Mat paramaha.
Considering me the supreme.
Considering me the supreme.
Mat bhakta.
Mat bhaktaha.
Engaged in my devotional service.
Engaged in my devotional service.
Sangha varjita.
Sangha varjitaha.
Freed from the contamination of
Freed from the contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation.
Without an enemy.
Without an enemy.
Sarva bhuteshu.
Sarva bhuteshu.
Among all living entities.
Among all living entities.
Ya.
Yaha.
One who.
One who.
Sa. He.
He.
Mam. Unto me.
Unto me.
Eti. Comes. Pandava.
Pandava.
O son of Pandu.
O son of Pandu.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. The purport's very long, so we've cut it short a little bit, but okay. Anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the Supreme Personality, Krishna, must take this formula as stated by the Supreme himself. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a book directed to the conditioned souls who are engaged in the material world with the purpose of lording it over nature and who do not know of the real spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita is meant to show how one can understand his spiritual existence and his eternal relationship with the Supreme Spiritual Personality, and to teach one how to go back home, back to Godhead. Now here's the verse which clearly explains the process by which one can attain success in his spiritual activity, devotional service. As far as work is concerned, one should transfer his energy entirely to Krishna conscious activities, as stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anasatyasya vishayan yatharam upayunjata nirvanda Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. No work should be done by any man except in relationship to Krishna. This is called Krishna karma. One may be engaged in various activities, but one should not be attached to the result of his work. The result should be done only for him. For example, one may be engaged in business, but to transform that activity into Krishna consciousness, one has to do business for Krishna. If Krishna is the proprietor of the business, then Krishna should enjoy the profit of the business. If a businessman is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and if he has to offer all this to Krishna, he can do it. This is work for Krishna. Instead of constructing a big building for his sense gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna, and he can install the deity of Krishna and arrange for the deity's service, as is outlined in the authorized books of devotional service. This is all Krishna karma. One should not be attached to the result of his work, but the result should be offered to Krishna, and one should accept as prasadam the remnants of offerings to Krishna. If one constructs a very big building for Krishna and installs the deity of Krishna, one is not prohibited from living there, but it is understood that the proprietor of this building is Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. If, however, one is not able to construct a temple for Krishna, one can engage himself in cleansing the temple of Krishna. That is also Krishna karma. One can cultivate a garden. Anyone who has land, in India at least, any poor man has a certain amount of land, can utilize that for Krishna by growing flowers to him. One can sow tulsi plants because tulsi leaves are very important, and Krishna has recommended this in the Bhagavad Gita. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. Krishna desires that one offer him either a leaf or a flower or fruit or a little water, and by such an offering he is satisfied. This leaf especially refers to the tulsi, so one can sow tulsi and pour water on the plant. Thus even the poorest man can engage in the service of Krishna. These are some examples of how one can engage in for Krishna. The word Matparamaha refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in his supreme abode to be the highest perfection of life. Such a person does not wish to be elevated to the higher planets, such as the moon or the sun or heavenly planets, or even the highest planet of this universe, Brahmaloka. He has no attraction for that. He is only attracted to being transferred to the spiritual sky. And even in the spiritual sky, he is not satisfied with merging into the glowing Brahmajyoti or effulgence, for he wants to enter the highest spiritual planet, namely Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. I'll skip this paragraph. The next one, the term Sanghavarjita is very significant. One should disassociate himself from the persons who are against Krishna. Not only are the atheistic persons against Krishna, but so also are those who are attracted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. Therefore, the pure form of devotional service is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as follows. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnanakarmadhyanavitam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami clearly states that if anyone wants to execute unalloyed devotional service, he must be freed from all kinds of material contamination. He must be freed from the association of persons who are addicted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. When freed from such unwanted association and from the contamination of material desires, one favorably cultivates knowledge of Krishna. That is called pure devotional service. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. One should think of Krishna and act for Krishna favorably, not unfavorably. Kamsa was an enemy of Krishna's. From the very beginning of Krishna's birth, Kamsa planned in so many ways to kill him. And because he was always unsuccessful, he was thinking of Krishna. Thus, while working, while eating, and while sleeping, he was always Krishna conscious in every respect. But that Krishna consciousness was not favorable. And therefore, in spite of his always thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day, he was considered a demon, and Krishna at last killed him. Of course, anyone who is killed by Krishna attains salvation immediately, but that is not the aim of the pure devotee. The pure devotee does not even want salvation. He does not want to be transferred even to the highest planet, Golok Vrindavan. His only objective is to serve Krishna wherever he may be. Adasham Sundari Ki Jai, Shri Gauri Dasi. Okay, so this is only one more paragraph. Okay. A devotee of Krishna is friendly to everyone. Therefore it is said here that he has no enemy. Nirvair. How is this? A devotee situated in Krishna consciousness knows that only devotional service to Krishna can relieve a person from all the problems of life. He has personal experience of this and therefore wants to introduce this system into human society. So we'll move on to prayers. Om Ajnanatimiratasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuktapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Shahagana Lalitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Pada Shahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagannath Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Taptakancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vachakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Matkarma Kran Matparamo Matbhakta Sangha Varjita Nirvaira Sarva Bhuteshu Yaha Samamiti Pandava. My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So, the very first point mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned whom this Bhagavad Gita is for. He said that the Bhagavad Gita is for us conditioned people to understand our relationship to the Lord and understand how to get to Him. So there's 5 topics in the Bhagavad Gita, as we know: Ishvara, Jiva, Karma, Kala, and Prakriti. And many of these important topics, as we are told to understand who we are, what our goal is, and how do we get to our goal. So these are 3 phases in which the Bhagavad Gita is. This Sambandha, Abhidheya, Prayojana is scattered throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So the Sambandha helps us understand what our relationship to the Lord is. We are Krishna's part and parcel, and that is explained throughout the Bhagavad Gita, who Jiva is, who Krishna is, and how we are related. And the last aspect is our goal. What is our goal? We always, whenever we start something, we always think, what do we want to get? What is the goal we want to get? So that is the prayojan. That is the last aspect, the goal. So the goal is obviously to get Krishna's service, Krishna Prema, and attain Golok Vrindavan. And the middle part, the most important part, is how do we get there? That's always the highest focus that we have, and that's the Abhideya. So that Abhideya is mentioned as Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti meaning uninterrupted, unmotivated devotional service to the Lord. And this is the verse that helps us understand how to achieve Ananya Bhakti. So here, the connection, this is chapter 11. This is the last verse of chapter 11, 1155. And the connection to the previous chapter is in chapter 10, titled Opulence of the Absolute. Krishna is explaining his glories and his different types of opulences. And so hearing this, Arjuna wants to see this, and he requests the Lord to show his universal form. So Krishna gives him transcendental eyes, gives him that vision to see his universal form. And he's seeing this, that's chapter 11, titled The Universal Form. And Arjuna is seeing this form, and he's completely bewildered. There's so much, going on all at once, so many hands, legs, and whatnot. All of Krishna's energies are just there in that one form. So Arjuna there, he's very bewildered. So Krishna, he obviously is within our heart, knows what's going on. So he then, seeing his bewilderment, goes back to his beautiful two-handed form. And the one very important thing the Lord says to Arjuna at that point is that this two-handed form of mine is very rare. This form is very rare to see, nor by different types of yogas, whether it be Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. These things cannot get us to see this form of the Lord except Ananya Bhakti. So that's where we read in the purport where Srila Prabhupada said, the quote is up here on the screen, he says this is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And this verse tells us how we can achieve that. So that's the theme of this verse, 5 steps to Goloka, and how we all can attain Ananya Bhakti. So we already read it in the verse in the translation, but I'll just state it here. So Krishna says, Mat karma kari, work for me. Mat paramo, make me the supreme goal. Mat bhakta, become my devotee. Sangha varjita, be freed from material contaminations. And lastly, nirvara sarva bhuteshu, be freed from envy, and thus you will come to me. So the first and foremost that he says is work for me. And in this context, Krishna is saying, work for me directly. That is his indication here. And that's what this verse says, Anasaktasya vishayan yatharam upayanjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya muchyate. What Krishna karma actually is to work for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, and thus one is freed from those results of his work and not shouldn't be attached. So Srila Prabhupada mentions this in the purport and how these different yogas people do Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, thinking that this is the way to Krishna. But that is not the actual way we can attain Krishna, because that is not favorably done for the Lord. As he mentioned the example of Kamsa, though Kamsa was thinking of the Lord 24/7, it was not out of a favorable intention. It was not out of love for the Lord. It was out of enmity. And he was brainstorming ways to kill the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada said only by bhakti yoga can one desire to serve favorably. So yes, in that sense, he's saying engaging our activities in the Lord's service. So whether it be a certain talent that we have, something that we're good at, to use in his service. And a wide example for this is Srila Prabhupada's disciple Jayananda Prabhu. He was by profession, I believe, an architect. And so the way Srila Prabhupada engaged him in Krishna's service was that he used his architectural skills to build Jagannath Rath Yatra carts. So in that way, everyone has a different thing that they're good at. Someone may be a really good speaker, good at socializing. So in that way, preaching is something that they can do. Someone likes to worship the deities, etc. There's so many ways in that way. So how can we work for Krishna? In this, first and foremost, what is needed is developing the understanding that Krishna is the one who gave us the intelligence, the raw materials, the strength, and the sanction. He's the one who sanctions all of this, and therefore, same thing like Srila Prabhupada said, if Krishna is the proprietor in that way, then who should get the profits of that business? He was mentioning example of the business, who should get the profits? And Srila Prabhupada within the purport explained the example of a businessman, but also that of a poor man. So he really puts us all into that umbrella. He encompasses everyone into that. And how everyone, whether it be from all walks of life, there's no limit to race, no limit to status. Anybody can do this. Anyone can engage into the Lord's service. This is non-sectarian. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. And so another example that comes to mind is Arjuna. Krishna said to Arjuna, Mamanusmarayudhija, think of me and fight. And in that sense, thinking of Krishna is how we can offer our results of our activities. And that's not practical though, right? We may ask, how can we always think of Krishna? So I was listening to something by Amarendra Prabhu, and someone asked him that question. Krishna told Arjuna, think of me and fight. But how can we do that? And that's when Amarendra Prabhu said this really clicked. He said, if Arjuna can think of Krishna while fighting on the battlefield, just imagine you're holding a bow and arrow to your relatives, about to kill them, then why can't we think of him doing, just our daily activities? So that's what he said. But obviously, practical wise, it's, when a doctor can't be going into the surgical room and treating a patient, but then also like chanting, with their japa bag and whatnot. That's obviously not practical, but that example, it shows us how we need to, it all starts first with the five senses. When we're able to, the mind is the hardest to control. Arjuna said, it's easier to control the wind than to control the mind. So if the mind is the hardest to control, then we can't just immediately think of Krishna. So the prescription given is that first, through the five senses, we can, through the ears hear, through the eyes see, and etc. If we absorb Krishna in that way, then the mind will automatically develop to thinking of Krishna. So, again, in this specific verse, Krishna says, work for me. Think of me and work for me directly. However, this is not always possible. So again, the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita, the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that Krishna has given us so many other alternatives, so many different ways to engage in. And it's not an on and off switch. It's not that I do it or I don't do it. There's so many alternatives. So Krishna says, if you can't think of me and work for me, then you can offer the fruits of your work to me. And if that's not possible, then offer the fruits of your work to a higher cause. And if that's not possible, then jnana yoga, cultivating knowledge. So in that way, the top rung of the yoga ladder is work for me. But Krishna gives us these many alternatives to build up from there too. So a quote from the Nectar of Devotion. Basically, the essence of this quote, it's on the board. I'll read it. One who is in Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he's performing fruitive activities. If by working one can engage money in Krishna consciousness, or if by rising early in the morning one can advance his transcendental Krishna consciousness, one should not desist out of fear, or because such activities are considered troublesome, etc. So, the essence of this quote is, what is real renunciation? Real renunciation is not giving up activities that actually can be engaged in the Lord's service. This is from Nectar of Devotion, and there's a verse, it tells us how we can engage our BMW. Can anyone guess what that stands for? Not our car, BMW. Can anyone guess? Our body, mind, and words into Krishna's service. So there's a verse in the Nectar of Devotion, Ihayase Haridase, Garmana Manasagira. So our body, mind, and words are engaged, and thus Nikhila Shapyavastatu Jivan Mukta Savachite. So in that way, it is being said that engaging this into the Lord's service, though one may be in the material world doing material activities, one is transcendental to it. They're in the material world, but not of it. So that's what the meaning of real renunciation is stated. It's not that, when we think of renunciation, we may think of someone who's just living in seclusion, just doing their own thing, no association, no nothing. That's not real renunciation. And there's a saying, real renunciation is external action and internal inaction. So externally, though they may be acting, internally it's not, there's no desire for the fruits and there's no internal actions. They're transcendental to this world, though they're acting in this world. So that's the aspect of Krishna saying, work for me. Now the second stage he says is, consider me the supreme goal. Consider me the supreme. And so in this there can be two ways that Srila Prabhupada elaborates on this in the purport. Obviously considering Krishna as a supreme person. Krishna says, Vata Paradharma Nanya. There's no one superior to me. Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. I'm the source of all the spiritual and material worlds. So obviously that knowledge must be there, knowing that Krishna is the supreme person. And when we understand that Krishna is the supreme person, we make him our supreme goal. And in our material lives, we have so many temporary goals that we follow. Someone might want to, things like completing an education, developing a skill, just working on our own qualities, etc. There's so many goals, temporary goals that we have. But the quality of a devotee is that a devotee tries to engage those in our eternal goal, in our supreme goal, and thus dovetail that to Krishna's service. So then that helps us to reach the Lord as well. When Krishna is the center motivation of our activities, that's very beneficial for us, and we can see this in our lives too. Like, there's an example given, everything we have, whether it be wealth, knowledge, fame, etc. These are all like zeros. But when Krishna is added to that, Krishna is like the one that gives all these zeros value. So no matter how many zeros you have, they're going to have no value unless there's a one in the beginning of those zeros. And there's a saying, kuch chorna nahi hai, Krishna ko jorna hai. So again, Krishna is like the one to all of those zeros. And we can see in our lives too, if someone's good at something and they engage in the Lord's service, the internal satisfaction you get is completely different than if you're doing that for someone else. So an example that comes here to mind is Vritasura. Vritasura was a demon. He was a demon, and he did many sinful things in his life. But came at the time of his death. He says there's 4 prayers. The prayers of Vritasura, they consist of 4 verses, 4 very beautiful verses, and one of the verses is here. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the purport that devotees are not interested in anything temporary. They want the supreme goal. And we can see this from Srila Prabhupada's example too. Srila Prabhupada, he never settled for less. His instruction to a lot of his disciples were shoot for the rhinoceros. That go for the highest you can. So he never settled for less. So same thing as the devotee never settles for less. The devotee wants straight Golok Vrindavan. No, here in the verse, Vritasura says, Anakapishtam nachaparamishtam nasarvabhomam narasadhipatyam Yoga siddhira punarbhavam va samanya sattva virahaya kankshi. So he says, Nanakaprisham, I don't want Prahlad Maharaj's planet. Nachaparamishtam, nor do I want Brahmaloka. Nasarvabhomam, I don't want this entire world. Narasadhipatyam, I don't want the lower planets. So Krishna's like, oh, so you want some yoga siddhi, expand in 2 seconds, become a little ant in 2 seconds, teleport from here to there in 2 seconds. He says, no, na yoga siddhir. And then Krishna's like, liberation? Question mark? Nope. He says no to that either. He rejects all of these things. And the last line is samanya sattva virahaya kankshi. If it means that I will be separated from your service, from your lotus feet. So that's the desire of a devotee. So the next is become his devotee. Krishna says, be my devotee. And so here Srila Prabhupada says the main prescription for this is by Sri Prahlad Maharaj, the 9 passes of devotional service. And he says in the purport that just by doing one can be purified. There's so many passages again. There's so many alternatives given, so many ways. There's not one, set in stone way. Prabhupada mentions that just by hearing, Parikshit Maharaj got liberated. And Samam iti Pandava. Thus, such a devotee can easily attain me. And this is not just a lifetime guarantee. We get so many lifetime guarantees. You know, you go to the store and you see a product and it'll say 100% satisfaction guarantee. It'll last the whole lifetime. And we believe those guarantees, don't we? We take that skincare product that tells us that it's going to make our skin 10 times lighter. 100% satisfaction guarantee, but does it? No, it doesn't. So here, Krishna gives us this